I am super excited. I was telling my friends, super long day today of meetings and interviews, and the founders were here today, so they wanted to talk to me. And I was like, well, I'm going to end my day by talking to somebody who understands space technology in Malaysia. And I thought, what a strange sentence. I love it. So I'm looking forward to talking to you and learning more about space tech in Malaysia, but all over Asia. Specifically, I think here in the U.S., the biggest name is SpaceX. We know about Elon and what they're doing, and then right behind them is it Blue Ocean?
Blue Origin.
Blue Origin.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. I'm thinking Blue Ocean, like Blue Ocean Strategy, the book. Great book, highly recommend. But Blue Origin, kind of second place. We'll see what happens over the next few years. And then, when I was in Japan last time, or 2 times ago, I was in Hokkaido, and some of my friends were telling me about the new spaceports that are opening up in Hokkaido and different parts of Japan. But I know China's trying to make a big push right now for getting more satellites in space. But I'd love to learn from you what's happening everywhere else in all of Asia. But before we get there, please, if you wouldn't mind giving a short introduction to the Shirley Saw.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a huge introduction, and thank you for having me as well. It was lovely talking to you just now about your Japanese addiction. I wouldn't say addiction. Your preference.
Let's be honest, it's an addiction. And if you saw how much I spend at like Don Quixote and Family Mart, you would call it an addiction.
Okay, all right, but hi, I'm Shirley. I'm Shirley Saw, and I'm based in a very quaint island in the north of the capital, which is called Penang. It's one of the biggest, huge retirement place, and we also have like one of the biggest semicon industry in the world. So we produce like Lam Research, NVIDIA chips over here, and yeah, so I'm building Liftoff Asia right now, and is a publication that is non-biased, very independent, where we try to put out different stories from various Asian countries rather than just mainly focusing on just Malaysia or Singapore, so that everyone gets a view of what's going on in the Asian region, and try to normalize space education information for the average person. So, to give them a push that space is not just for the smart people, and then they can actually step into it and probably innovate themselves. Yeah. So
I love it. Awesome. Before we get into kind of what's happening in, the present day space in Asia, how did Liftoff Asia start? Like what's of all the industries you could have picked to kind of, report on and talk about and highlight, why did you choose space tech in Asia? And like, what's been the origin of that?
It's a very interesting one. I didn't really start in space. So I started in the food business. I've always loved food. I love how it connects people. When you're happy having your sweets or having a sushi, you're always like, oh, I had this with a few of my colleagues when I was in Fukuoka, and it was really good. It's a gateway to a stranger's backstory, of which you will never get in a networking session or, like a meetup. Food is a gateway to everything. So I was making food. I was making burgers, so American style burgers, smash burgers, and I was delivering out, doing pop-ups, and it was at a point where I raised to start like a brick and mortar store, and I bootstrapped for like 500 ringgit, and then it got to like a 6-figure revenue in the 3rd year or so. So I think that was fun. There was a lot of learning curve into it. By the 5th year, I kind of feel like it wasn't really fulfilling enough. So I downsized it, and I got more focused into marketing because I used to do a lot of marketing for food. That's really necessary. And yeah, I was a marketing associate for a fractional consulting firm in Singapore. And I was also consulting as a marketing director for a few fintech startup and a logistic MNC. And so from that, it was kind of like, I'm not really fulfilled, you know. When you do that something, you just feel like there should be more to this. And that's why I took a leap of faith. When one of my contract ended, I was like, okay, I'm not gonna accept any more contract. I'm just gonna zone in on this one industry, which is space tech or deep tech, which is one of my longest fascination before anything else, even before college. So that's when I started. And then that's how I got here. I'm 89 days in, and I'm happy where it got me. With my delusional confidence, it really got me to somewhere. So yeah, I'm happy.
Well, no one ever changed the world by being reasonable, so I love it. Well, perfect. I think that's a great segue into tell me what's happening in space tech in Asia. I'll let you kind of lead the conversation of where you want to start with that, because I know there's a lot. But what's most interesting to you right now?
Most interesting right now, I think everyone has a consensus that, as you well know as well, Asia, everyone refer Asia as one big whole continent, but every specific country over here has their own geopolitical interests, and they don't necessarily align with their counterparts a lot of time. So that is where a lot of times that's where a lot of national policies differs a lot of times. And Japan, China, and Korea is also doing well in the industry, as well as India. But for Southeast Asia, Singapore is pushing a lot with the policies. They're not launching any rockets because their geography doesn't allow them to. But a lot of the people here in Southeast Asia are trying to push the talents that are gonna create all these inventions. But again, there's also a gap to it. And this is what I mainly want to close, is that this gap, there's a lot of talents, but not because international players, international investors doesn't necessarily know talents are here. The costing, the labor, and everything is so much more favorable than it is in the US, but they are not seeing it because, there's so much visibility on the ones in China, Japan, or in the US. So talents flow out sometimes. So that is the one thing that talent gap is the one thing that that is happening over here, even though it's still not as big of a news, but it's still in the progress of it. We're kind of like at the beginning of an S curve where the industry is kind of like, should we not? It's a very risk-averse continent in a sense. Yeah. So that's where we are right now. And is there anything you would like to ask, you would be curious about? I feel like that would be much more interactive than just listening to me, honestly.
I definitely want to hear you. I think we find the best content when people just ramble on and you get the details. But I did want to ask specifically, you brought up a good point of like differentiating. There is Asia as a whole, but then there's also Southeast Asia and South Asia. And I was curious as you were talking of, what are the different incentives you see for these different companies like pushing their space program? I think satellites is probably the most obvious answer for a lot of them, to have more internet connection and interconnectivity between maybe the different prefectures or states or cities in their countries. I think India recently touched the moon for the first time, and then Japan's pushing a lot of satellites up there as well for internet connection. what are you seeing as some of the different like incentives for these countries to get into the space race?
Mhm. All of them have very different incentive, as you said. For the China, sorry, I put an accent in there. For the Chinese, their mission doesn't necessarily align with Japan or India, because they have their own space research program, which is like the lunar research, IRLS. And whereas for Japan, they are signed to the Artemis Accord, right? So both of these parties are going to the moon for very different reasons. For China, it's about, a lot of times it's about sovereignty. They are going up to the moon. Yeah, everyone works in very interesting way. Singapore, I would say, is the most interesting so far, because they are utilizing more on soft power rather than, putting all their innovation capital into all the hardware. So yeah.
When you say soft power, do you mean more like innovating software, or more like branding it? Or sorry, when I think soft power, I think the most popular example of that is like South Korea's government investing heavily into getting K-pop and like movies and different things out there to promote soft power. So I'm interested to hear, what do you mean by soft power on the space side?
Yeah, that's a good example. So soft power, in a sense, in Singapore, which is Lee Kuan Yew wanted to emphasize on, because it's a small country with many nationality. You have the Malays, Chinese, and Indians, so you can't really play on like one ethnicity. So what they really prioritize on is being very much a friendly business environment. So I was talking to a lawyer by background, policy maker, previously a policy maker, and now in private personnel in Singapore. And it's really interesting in the sense where Singapore is always neutral. So they never try to have like a very strong partnership with everyone. And so they try to balance out their relationship with China. And it's also because it's one small island at the bottom of the peninsula of Malaysia that they have a lot of authority over the straits to go to, let's say, India or wherever, right? So they still hold a lot of those type of power, but they don't point you at knife point, like saying like, hey, you gotta collaborate with me. It's always in a sense where they have a lot of power. Hey, I have all these businesses over here that are setting up, that we have a lot of capital. It's one of the second biggest financial powers after Hong Kong and after China or Japan, right? So they use that in a sense where they put it in negotiation table, where so people can't press them, even though that they're a very small country over here. And so yeah, I would say that would be their sense of soft power. It's their way of being strategic, even though they have no resources, no land. Yeah.
No, you bring up a very good point. I actually had to do a presentation yesterday. I feel like today's Wednesday. This week is flying by and going so slow at the same time. But one day I had to give a presentation to the company about, here's what's happening outside of the U.S. border. Here's what's happening in Asia, and Latin America, and Europe, and the changing landscape, and how AI is changing this. And one of the big stories was Singapore, and how disproportionately it's like absorbing all the venture capital in Southeast Asia. And even a lot of founders in Japan and South Korea, they'll start their first, pre-seed and seed round, and they'll raise it in Japan. And then they'll get to their Series A and say, well, we need a lot more money and a lot bigger checks. So they'll go to either Silicon Valley in the US or Singapore to raise money. So it's very interesting to see that. I think it was like 96% of all Southeast Asian VC money is in Singapore. And I think it was closer to like 60% of all Southeast and East Asian money was in Singapore. So they're doing a great job of collecting all that money. But I think it's going to be interesting to see how that is divvied up over the next few years. And especially as people start turning away from, what's the right term? Like direct AI, less. I think the story last year was all the venture capital money is going towards OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, these top Cursor, these top AI models for just building infrastructure and bigger brains for their machines so they can absorb more data. But now, the money is shifting away from those guys into more diversified portfolio of, hardware, robotics, what they're calling physical AI. And I think we could see a lot of that moving into, more satellite technology. I heard of somebody today. I'm terrible with remembering these names. I'll find it later and put it a picture, up here while I'm talking. But somebody was talking about there's now a competitor to Starlink, to where they're getting more and more because it's getting cheaper and cheaper. And now there's more than just the US that can send rockets to space to release their satellites. But also it's good for the consumer because now there's more competition and we can get better internet for cheaper, hopefully. So look at me. Now I'm the one rambling. I did want to ask, you mentioned a lot of different locations and cities and areas. If you had to name off, let's say, 3 or 4, and I hope this isn't too biased, but if, 3 or 4 cities or universities that are really putting a lot of investment into their space race, what would you say those cities or universities are to keep an eye on over the next year or two?
For universities, I would really say one of the organization in Malaysia, I would say, is Apa di Langit. It's Malay, so I can give you the spelling later. So essentially, they are in Kuala Lumpur, which is the capital, and they mainly teach to primary or secondary school children about what they can do in space, what they can learn about CubeSats, all those type of things. And I think they're really making a good effort collaborating with few of the organization with Malaysian Space Agency. They are doing very well. And the second one I would really say is definitely Singapore. They're really, really pushing their college and university students to open their eyes to what is actually possible. And it is actually possible to talk to all these industry experts. I was in Singapore last 2 months ago, and it was an event held by space faculty where they had a roundtable of a person who is making Lunar Rigor Simulin, CEO, just guiding them. And then there's another one, global business developer from Rocket Lab, of which I think your audience would know very well. She's just answering every curious question that all these students had. And there's also a few one that was advocating for sustainability in space. So there's a lot of people in there, and then it was a roundtable where they switch within like 15 minutes. So every student over there, I think about 30, 40, 50 of them had a chance to talk with all these different industry experts. And at the end of it, I met up with one of the students, which is from Malaysia, and he is studying in NTU and then NUS, National University Singapore. These are the two main universities that are really advocating for space technology. And the students were giving feedback like, I did not know this was possible. You know, if I went studying in Singapore, in NUS or NTU, I did not think that being in the space industry was even possible to even imagine, right? And he mentioned like specifically like this type of education should be more pronounced in Malaysia so that they know that, hey, this is very much possible. And given that 90% of our revenue from Malaysia is actually from downstream services and businesses, which is mainly telecommunication. So, you know, if the whole country is earning so much revenue from that technology, a lot more of the natives should know about it. But yeah, I would say these three. I don't know that much about the education in Japan. Maybe you could tell me, and I would love to go visit them as well, because I'm going to Japan beginning of September. So yeah, I'm still like looking at who is available to meet up, and I'd love to learn a lot from them in their own space. Yeah.
Last question. Want to be conscious of your time. I always like to ask this question because my previous program that I worked at was with a lot of college students at the University of Wisconsin. But now I'm switching to Japan stuff full time. So now this question just feels strange for me to ask, but I'm going to ask it anyway. A lot of my audience is college level students or first time founders. If you had to give one piece of advice to a lot of these founders as they're starting their journey, or what kind of advice would you give them?
It depends. Have they started on their journey? Have they gotten to the point where, okay, I'm gonna risk it, or are they still thinking, should I risk it? So it kind of depends which mindset they're coming in from. Because
let's do one of each.
I have a lot of my friends. So let's say they really want to do something, but don't know if they should go for it, right? So that's where the first group of you guys are. I have a lot of friends who are in corporate. They work that as 9 to 5 and even overtime, for a certain amount of salary. And really good for you if stability is something you want, because everyone is different. I can't really force you to be entrepreneurial and then risk all your savings, right? And it's great if you have an rough 401k and having your employer to match that. It's great. You're gonna have like a safe future, safe retirement in the future. But if it's really bothering you that I should really start, then have that certain amount of savings, how much runway that you would have starting that business. If it's inventory heavy, if you're starting a hardware business, then you should really think about how much that hardware experimental, getting how the costing, how much that would cost, and then how much runway you would need throughout maybe 6 or a year. Maybe that's something that you would know. Like if it's a hardware business, how long do you need to sustain before it blows off, right? Blows off in a good way. But if you already know that you really want to start something, if you want to start something, and you just want to go ahead, talk with industry experts. Talk with the experts that has already walked the path that you want to walk, and just be curious. Just be a learner. At the end of the day, I think it would be best to utilize psychology of having people talk about themselves, and then that's where ultimately you get the most information out of that person you want to learn from, right? Be a listener, always be a listener, always be a learner. And yes, there is some point where you should talk, and probably that's when you have enough information, you want to share it out, or you want to sell. That's when you start talking. But if you're new to the industry and you want to start something new and you don't know about it, you should just listen. So, and then when you listen, the more you learn, it magnifies to how much of a contribution in terms of value that you can put out in your business. Yeah, that would be my recommendation. And then when you're a listener, it will be easier to sell stuff as well, because people love listening to themselves. And you could start selling stuff very easily. And use social media to help you. That would be very much recommended. Yeah.
Love it. Thank you very much. It's a great piece of advice that I learned a long time ago was sales is like 80% listening. If you're doing any more talking than 20%, then you're not doing a good job of finding out what their problem is so you can solve it better. Beautiful. Love it. Thank you so much, Shirley. It's been a pleasure talking with you. Where can people find out more about you? Where can they follow you? Where can they learn more about Liftoff Asia? What's the best place?
Okay. So I have like whole funnel of this, and every platform is very different. For now, I have YouTube, which is a much more longer form of journalism about the Asian space economy. One of them actually blew off. I just posted it 5 days ago. It had like 28,000 viewers already. I'm pretty excited, and I'm really excited. Like, wow, which is my goal. I'm normalizing the space industry for the global audience, which I'm really happy about. And a lot of the comments are saying, India is going great. Let's make Asian space economy even greater, that rival with the West. I think you should cut that out. Well, I don't know.
Nah, do it. Rival them.
Yeah.
More competition. We love it.
Yeah, and then YouTube is much more long-form journalism in a visual form, and then Liftoff Asia is my weekly publication of the sometimes founder stories that I interview. The YouTube also has podcasts, and then Instagram. It's not much of a long-form journalism, but it's more to my personal journey into entrepreneurship. So it's much more relatable. People don't want to watch like 5 minutes video on Instagram, right? And then on LinkedIn is very much where I connect with professionals like you and get to know them very well and just learn. So I have a few platforms. Can send you the link later. Probably you can just edit it up there. And it's so that's where you can find me. Yeah. And then if not, I don't know how it's possible.
Yeah. I think that's more than enough ways to connect with you. If people can't, follow what you're doing and the great work you're doing at Liftoff Asia, those multiple ways, then we can't help them. There's no saving them. So perfect. I'll make sure to put like a link up top, and I'll put the links to all those in the description as well. So perfect. Shirley, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking with you, and I hope that one day we can meet in Malaysia or Singapore and share a good bowl of whatever you like to eat, because I always prefer to default to, well, I'm in your country, let's eat what you like. So super excited to try it all, and hopefully we can see a rocket ship take off in one of these days. So yeah,
hopefully. If you're coming to any of this area over here, we'll welcome you anytime and eat more of the awesome food. It would be great. And It was great to meet you as well.
A pleasure. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
And